Here we'll briefly describe the idea of a square root. So first consider the idea of a square. A square means that you take the base and you multiply it by the number of times as indicated by the exponent. So 2 squared would be 2 times 2. 3 squared would be 3 times 3. This would give us 4, this would give us 9. A square root is the idea that I am looking for basically the opposite idea. This means what number multiplied by itself gives 9. Okay, well, the number that multiplied by itself that gives me 9, oops, I wrote the answer instead of the statement, is going to be 3. So the answer is 3 because 3 times 3 equals 9. Similarly, for, let's say, 16, well, 4 times 4 equals 16, so the answer is 4. Now, what about more interesting problems, like what number times itself gives me 22? Well, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25, so it must be somewhere between 4 and 5. But what I'll do is I'll come over here to my calculator and show you how to calculate the square root. So if you hit second and then your square button here, that will pull up the square root sign, and now you enter in 22. And we're hoping this will be between 4 and 5 because 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25, and we get about 4.69. So we could use a squiggly equal sign to indicate that it's about equal to. Okay, so that's basically the idea of a square root. What number times itself gives me the value under the symbol. So this thing is called the square root sign or the radical. So sometimes we'll just say radical 15. What number times itself gives me 15? Well, I know 3 times 3 is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, so it's got to be somewhere between there, probably closer to 16, but the square root of 15 is going to be 3.87, so it is closer to 4, it's about 3.87. Okay, now let's ask the more pressing question that we'll need to answer. Let's say we have x squared equals 9. So we're asking what number squared gives 9. Well, that's basically the same as the question over here. What number times itself gives me a 9? Okay, well, what I would actually say is that's going to be the square root of 9, which is 3. So you might even be able to guess that 3 times 3 is 9, and the answer for x would be 3. However, I'm claiming that's not the only answer. Possible answer. What else is? Well, we know that 3 times 3 equals 9, but we can also do negative 3 times negative 3 equals 9. So the answer to x squared equals 9 should be x is equal to negative 9 or x is equal to positive 9. Sometimes we just write that this way. X equals plus 9 or minus 9. So plus or minus 9. Okay, so the way we can think about this is whenever we're solving an equation, like let's say x squared equals 15. Well, we can take the square root of both sides. Why can we do that? Well, a squared means what number times itself. A square root will basically cancel out the square. So if I take 3 squared and I take the square root of that, what's that asking? Well, 3 squared is 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. So that just gives me back the original number. So if I square a number and square root it, I get x back. So x equals the square root of 15. However, keep in mind that it's going to be the positive or the negative version of it. Our calculator would not tell us that. So when we take the square root of 15, which we get 3.87, we actually want to say x can be positive 3.87 or x can be negative 3.87. So the point is, when you take a square root of both sides, we must add the plus or minus sign to indicate